Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Sarah.
I'm Doug. Hello there. Welcome to another Afternoon TV podcast.
Hello, welcome back. So it's been a while since Doug and I have done this, but we're back, and we're back with a vengeance.
Bam! With a vengeance!
Exactly. So today we're going to talk about Game of Thrones, because there's a big compendium being compiled together. And we're going to put together a podcast, and we're actually going to put together a couple of them.
Several.
Yeah, so today we're going to talk about Season 1. Brief overview, Game of Thrones is based on a book series, A Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin.
The wonderful literary serial killer of characters.
Yeah, a lot of people die in Game of Thrones. Don't ever get attached to a character because guaranteed they're going to die.
Yeah, we learned that the hard way as us as fans.
Very, very much so. So it's really hard to be a part of the Game of Thrones fandom.
Yeah. Later on, you kind of find it harder and harder to recommend this show because it's like, yeah, Sean Bean's a part of it. Okay. Yeah, this person's a part of it. That guy, he's pretty cool. Oh God, never mind.
It's like, watch it because there's dragons.
Where's the dragons at? Oh wait, there they are.
So, Bree, for my quick overview, I love the show. I think it's very brilliantly written. The first season definitely goes along with the book pretty much spot on.
It really does. Maybe minor a few details left out, but it really lets it flow the way it needs to.
I think part of the reason why it's just that good at following the first book is because George R.R. Martin is an executive producer. Like, he does have a lot of say in what happens in the show. And I really appreciate that because you kind of need that attention to detail. And I'm sure that when Mr. Martin was putting it all together, he had a certain idea of how he wanted things to go. And, I'm sure that when these people were putting together this TV show, there are just certain things that they just can't do.
Right, whether it be by the character saying, I'm not comfortable with that, or the actor,
right.
and money reasons.
And not only that, like, sometimes you just can't find a location that fits.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a lot of things that do have to change as you're putting together a series based on a book, but I think that they did a really good job at putting it together.
It's one of my favorite seasons in the whole makeup of the show.
My personal favorite is season 2.
Yes, I know.
But
exactly.
I definitely hardcore love season 1. There's a lot of characters introduced very quickly.
Yeah, actually, if you really think about it, there's a lot of characters that happen all at once, but you don't get to know them until maybe a little later on.
Yeah, so
they just exist.
So I feel like if you're that kind of person who's not really good at remembering characters or characters' names, take notes.
Yeah. I had to do that with, like, True Detective.
Exactly. I know that may sound silly to a lot of people. Well, why am I going to take notes during a TV show? And it's because there's so many different storylines going on at the same time that not every single episode includes every single storyline.
Absolutely.
So sometimes you'll get... Sorry to cut you off.
No,
sometimes you'll get... 1 or 2 episodes where you don't hear anything about a particular storyline, and then in that following episode they come back to it. So if you're not very good at remembering things, like, I would definitely take notes. Plus, because of the time frame that this is being set in, I guess you could kind of equate it to, like, the the medieval period.
Yes,
because it's very Middle Ages, like
Middle Ages indeed. Yes,
yeah.
Absolutely.
So everyone is separated into houses. So
and it's the best way to actually follow them because there's a lot of members inside the family.
Exactly. So you could even Google it because I've found them on Google, and you can actually print out entire family trees.
It's amazing how much detail there is.
Yeah, and how many people are in these different houses and how they're connected together. So you can actually print out those family trees and take notes on those, and you can do it however you want. But I would definitely suggest taking notes.
There is a lot of, like, say, compendiums for the trees, the family trees,
Yes.
and the houses, because there are many, many people out there that absolutely love this book series and the show, that they go all out. They're like, okay, this is where the Baratheons come from, the Lannisters, the Starks, the Tullys.
People have done genealogies on fictitious families. I mean, it's crazy when you have fandoms that are just so involved in their fandom.
Absolutely.
I love it. It's great.
I really do. And then not only inside the families, sometimes they mingle, like the Lannisters and Starks, especially in the first season. They're those are the two houses that you're supposed to be following. And you gotta appreciate the dynamics between different characters like Tyrion and Jon Snow.
Right, they do. Although they're two very, very different people, they have a lot in common. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. In general, I think it's just really great how they put it together.
Yeah.
Plus, in my opinion, I can list off probably like my top 10 favorite shows in terms of writing. Not just all over, but in terms of writing. Mm-hmm. Game of Thrones is definitely in my top 5.
Yeah, so it's pretty solid writing all around. The dialogue is very informative. Then there's never a dull moment where if they're saying something, it's important.
Well, it's not as much action driven like
True.
Like, okay, if we were to compare like Walking Dead and Z Nation, Sci-Fi put together Z Nation, which is action.
Which I've never seen. So
I watched like one episode. I'm not really into it because I would rather just watch a movie where it's an hour and a half and not an entire series. Mm-hmm. Plus, in my opinion, I like story-driven TV shows. Like, I need stories. I need character development.
Mm-hmm. So are you saying it's more character-driven?
Walking Dead is more character-driven than Z Nation.
Yes,
Z Nation is more action-driven. So if we were to compare the two,
right?
You could probably say, like, Merlin is action-driven. Game of Thrones is story-driven. Game of Thrones is very dialogue-heavy, so if you're not a fan of a lot of dialogue, you're probably not going to enjoy it because
no, you're not.
There's a lot of dialogue. If you don't pick up on subtlety and if you don't pick up on political intrigue, it's not really going to be for you.
Nope.
Just like House of Cards. It's very dialogue heavy. I think I kind of feel like True Detective is a little dialogue heavy too.
It's very dialogue heavy. You're absolutely right.
You have certain shows that are like action driven but not really story driven. Mm-hmm. Like for me, 24 was action driven and not so much story driven.
It is very action driven.
But
however, there is a lot of story driven moments, but the action is very much there. It also wavers too because one season is more quite the opposite.
Right, but I would say in general, in a complete overview without going into it, it's more action driven.
Yeah.
So it also depends on how you are as a TV viewer. If you enjoy action, it's a good show, but I don't necessarily think it would be for you.
Yeah, it's an acquired taste, so to speak. But when you're finally there, when you get after a couple of episodes and you find yourself wanting to get to the next episode, you're pretty much sucked in. You're like, what happened after that? I gotta know.
Matt was pretty upset because he was like, "Where are the dragons? Like, I don't see like, where are the dragons in here?" And I was like, "Shut up! You gotta watch the show. Like, you can't just wake up and there be dragons. Like, it just doesn't work that way."
It's a great progression build of everything. Oh, you don't know this character? You wait. You'll find out very soon. Oh, where are those dragons? Just wait. It'll be there.
Exactly. Plus, there's only 10 episodes?
10 episodes per season.
And they're all pretty much exactly an hour long.
Give or take a couple of minutes. Absolutely.
Yeah. So there's a lot of information crammed in every single episode. So if you're feeling like, oh, there's no information in this story, go up to your friend and try explaining everything that happened because you'll go, holy crap, so much happened in this episode. I just can't. I can't explain it to you.
Yeah, well, it was like what you said in our previous podcast, like in Mad Men. You know, nothing happened in this episode, but then you go back and you're like, oh my god, so much has happened.
Exactly. Like, I would try to explain it to my dad, and I'm like, holy shit, so much was happening. Like, hold on, let me go back for a minute. I need to explain this to you. So yeah, in terms of episodes, though, I love the first episode.
Winter is Coming is what it's called.
I love it. I think it really sets up the two main houses that we're looking at, which is House Lannister
and House Stark.
It's
where we first meet all of the Stark family and one additional, which is the Greyjoys, but we can get into that later.
The Greyjoys don't really count. They suck.
Yeah, whatever. They suck. They're kind of like that. They're
the douchebags.
Yeah, they're like that douchebag in a party that sits in the corner and they kind of just speculate that things are going to go wrong.
I feel like the Greyjoys just kind of feel like they're better than everybody else. But we'll get into it. We'll get into it because oh my god, I could do an entire podcast with how much the Greyjoys are assholes.
Yeah. So we get to finally. Not finally. We meet our lovable Sean Bean as the lead character, Ned Stark, and he's pretty much the main character of the show for this season.
Yeah, he's the kind of person who is a do-gooder. Mm-hmm. He's always a do-gooder. He does the right thing, and
honor-bound, very honor-bound.
He's very honor-bound, and you'll find out that he made one mistake. He went to war with his best friend Robert Baratheon.
Yep.
Who is now the king of this entire country that we're talking about, which is called Westeros.
This entire country is called Westeros.
Yeah, so the country is called Westeros, and then there are certain houses that control different areas of this entire country. So Ned Stark is in charge of the northern part of the country, which is very cold, very desolate.
And I think their house saying their motto is "Winter is coming."
Winter is coming. So always prepare for bad things because bad things will always happen. That's kind of what Winter is talking about. Shush. We will get there.
I know. We're only on the first episode. So yeah, go ahead.
No, you're good. And then he is married to Catelyn Tully. I really don't like her, so I have nothing to say about her. Anyways,
I think motivations can get very muddled, and where Catelyn Tully's heart was in the right place, she was not exactly doing always the greatest things.
No, she was pretty shifty.
Very shifty,
and I just didn't like it, and I didn't appreciate it. Anyways,
it bothered a lot of people.
It did, but
that's neither here nor there. We'll get to it. There's a lot of we'll get to it moments.
Yeah. I think really in season 2 is really when I want to get into my I hate Catelyn.
Okay, well
phase.
Then
for very obvious reasons.
Coming next week in the Compendium of Game of Thrones, featuring Doug and Sarah.
Right.
All right. So, like we said, we get introduced to the Starks and the Lannisters, but how it really starts is by. This is one thing that I really love about this show is that it's very realistic in a lot of ways, but there's so much rising magic coming around in the world, and they even talk about it in passing, which of course we will get into again. But they always said at a time magic was very prominent. Spells, dragons, wizards, giants, they were all here, and then they just started to dwindle.
And that's kind of what we talk about right now as a culture. Back in the day, we used to talk about giants and trolls and dragons and magic and witches
which is a very great parallel to our world in this.
It is, which I think is one of the reasons why Game of Thrones hits the mark with so many people is because there are a lot of parallels to things that we have already talked about as a culture, and things that this new fictitious world talks about as a culture. And so all of these things that used to be very, very real are now only in myth.
Yep.
Just like today's generation, like, oh, well, we don't believe in ogres and trolls and stuff like that. But it's very possible that it was a very real thing.
Mm-hmm.
and they have completely disappeared. So we meet, I feel like we meet the Starks because there's a lot of problems coming from both north and south of where the Starks are. So where the Starks are is right on the border of what's considered the wild lands.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you want to talk about it, it's kind of like the North Pole. It's kind of like a frozen tundra. Like it
really is.
There's not a lot there. There's what's considered wildlings. There are people who live up there.
Don't know why, but
I can't handle the cold, but whatever. So they live out there, but they're not a part of this country. In fact, there is a huge, over 1,000-foot ice wall.
Which is what they reference to as the Wall.
The Wall.
Mm-hmm.
That separates these wildlings from everyone else in the entire country of Westeros. So Ned Stark and his family is kind of the end point between the North and the rest of Westeros. Now, Ned's best friend, Robert Baratheon, is king of Westeros.
Yeah, the whole land itself.
The whole kit and caboodle. And he is married to Cersei Lannister. And her family is the... her family is the richest family in the entire country, in the entire kingdom.
Yep. And as it stands with these characters, Robert Baratheon being king and all, what really starts this entire story, at least on the realistic level, quote unquote, is where kings have advisors. They call them the right hand of the king. They listen to their advice. They listen to, regardless of whatever it is, like the money. They handle all that stuff when the king does something else entirely.
So when we get to this point here, what we actually find is that the current hand of the king has died. And so Robert Baratheon goes to visit his best friend Ned Stark in order to ask him to become the new hand of the king.
And that is really kind of like, and I like to quote Jaime Lannister would put it, the king shits and the hand wipes.
Pretty much. So the hand of the king makes a majority of the decisions for the entire kingdom, and the actual king can either say yep or nope. And there you go. So we see the entire Stark family, and it's very funny how this family is very realistic in terms of you've got the naive daughter, Sansa, who all she wants to do is twirl around in pretty dresses. And,
I want to get married and have babies.
Yeah, she just wants to marry a prince and have beautiful little babies, and life is a bowl full of cherries, and nothing bad ever happens. Mm-hmm. And then you have Arya, who's the tomboy.
More or less, yeah.
And she actually wants to be one of the boys. She wants to sword fight, and she wants to be an archer, and
she wants to be a warrior in a sense. You know, she wants. She doesn't want the life that everyone's making her out to have.
She's a little too young to understand that as a girl, there are certain expectations put upon her to get married, to have kids and stuff. She just wants to be like her brothers.
Yep.
She has a younger brother, Rickon.
Which isn't very prominent at all, but he exists.
He's alive, but he's not really a big deal.
Yeah.
And then there's Bran.
Bran is kind of like Arya in the sense of age. Bran is already trying to become what is expected of him. He's trying to do some archery when we first introduced to him.
Then there's Robb.
There's Robb, who's the
oldest.
Who is the oldest.
So yes. in terms of age, you have Robb, Jon Snow, who is a bastard son.
Which is what you mentioned earlier about,
Ned making a mistake. He went off to war and had an affair with a woman while he was married and came back with a baby.
Yep.
And I'll get into that in a minute. let me keep going. So there's Robb Stark, Jon Snow. Since Jon is not the child of Catelyn Stark and Ned Stark, he cannot keep the Stark name. Mm-hmm. But because he's from the north and it's very cold, the last name is Snow. So anyone who's a bastard child has the last name of Snow.
So if you have that, a lot of people use that against you. They say, listen here, bastard. They try to be, they really try to demean you while trying to help you, because
they isolate you by using something that's completely out of your control. You can't control who your parents are, but they use something like that to basically demean you for the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. However, then you have Sansa Stark. You have
Arya.
No, Bran's older than her.
Yes. I'm sorry.
Arya,
you're going in order of age.
Yes.
Sorry. Excuse me.
That's okay. So there's Robb Stark, Jon Snow, Sansa Stark, Bran Stark, Arya Stark, Rickon Stark.
Yes.
So there's 6. Well, 5 legitimate kids and then 1 illegitimate child. So my biggest problem that we experience, even in the first episode when we meet the whole family, Catelyn Stark is horribly awful to Jon Snow.
She really is.
She's
even in
horribly
the book,
awful.
she was even, I think, even worse.
She was worse in the books. I agree. She was worse in the books, and here's the problem, and she even admits it later on, and this is something that we can talk about in season 2. But she's blaming Jon Snow for the fact that her husband cheated on her. She's making Jon Snow pay for it. And that's not fair, because this kid did not choose to be an illegitimate child. He didn't even choose the life that he was going to have, and
she got the reasons of her anger mixed up. I think at one point she was mad at Ned, but she loves him so much that she doesn't really blame him anymore, or even at all.
No,
but
see, I kind of disagree. And I say that as a woman.
I wasn't more of a statement as it was more like a question.
No, I get it, but I'm saying, like, as a woman, the problem with that is her anger is not even at Jon, and it's not even at Ned. She's mad with herself, I think.
Okay, explain.
Because it's, as a woman, your first instinct is to say, well, why wasn't I enough? As someone who has been cheated on, let me tell you, your first instinct is to go, well, what did I do wrong? Have I said something wrong? Did I do something wrong? So I feel like at first...
That's me every day.
So I feel like she was angry with herself first. And then
the 5 steps of grievance.
Exactly. And then I think she was mad at Ned. But the problem is, I don't think that she would have the balls to tell Ned how upset she would be at him.
I think she understood the situation surrounding her at the time, because there was war. Do you think that would have been it? Or
no.
Okay.
Hell no. Nope. Let me just tell you what. If I'm with you, and you even look at another woman the wrong way, we're gonna talk about it when you get home. Oh, hell no. Because I'm not gonna embarrass you in front of all your friends, but you better believe when we get home,
we will mix words.
Oh my God, World War III, shit is going down. You better prepare, and you know what? Just apologize. Say you were wrong, and buy me some chocolate, because I'm telling you, you will be in trouble.
Bye, Felicia.
Right? You're sleeping on the couch.
And better yet, get out.
Right. Like, dude, if we had a doghouse, I would make it big enough so you could sleep in there. Like, I'm so not kidding.
Yeah.
So I don't think it had anything to do with that at all. I think she tries to rationalize it that way. Oh, well, he was at war.
Which is a lot of advice and a lot of calming words to, say, even Ned Stark, who won't even talk about the woman he cheated on.
Yeah, he won't even talk about it at all. But for Catelyn, that's not even it. She tries to rationalize it that way.
Yes.
But that's not it. That's absolutely not it.
It's very, very deep. You can see how deep we can already get with just one character.
Exactly. So that's not it at all. I don't think she has the balls to look at her husband and be as mad at him as she should be. And I feel like that's why she harbors so much against Jon Snow. If she had just said to Ned, just tell me the truth, tell me what happened, I need to know everything. I need to know every dirty detail. I want to know what her nipples look like. I need to know everything. Everything.
Does she have big tits?
Like, I need to know every single detail. I need to know every single detail.
Oh,
I feel like if she had just grabbed him by the collar and yelled at him and screamed at him and just told him what was going on, I don't think she would be mad at Jon Snow. But every single time she looks at Jon, she looks at him and goes, that's my failing. Because my husband didn't love me enough to stay faithful. That is my failing. That is a constant human, living, breathing, talking reminder of how my husband at one point did not love me. And that makes her so angry. And again, I get that she's angry.
Mm-hmm.
But she's angry at the wrong person. Jon was not alive. He didn't ask his mom to bang his dad. Like, he wasn't around. Like, you're punishing the wrong person. And that just drives me nuts. Because Jon, I think, out of all of the children, is the sweetest soul in the group.
He isn't really hot-headed as, say, Robb is. He's not really... And I mean this in a general sense.
No, I get that. I would definitely agree with that.
It's not to say that Jon can be quite hot-headed, but it's not his strongest feature that keeps him going.
He's not proud.
No.
I think Robb is, because Robb is the entitled son,
mm-hmm.
because he's going to inherit everything.
Yeah.
So I think Robb kind of feels a little bit of a sense of entitlement, like, I'm the eldest, I am the best.
You know what's great about Robb is that it's exactly as you say, but he's not
humble.
He's very humble. He's not a pompous.
No. He has moments.
I'm saying, like,
but on the whole,
this. Yes.
But on the whole,
yes.
He's got a sense of entitlement, but he's humble about that entitlement.
You hear this, ladies and gentlemen? This is the sound of Sarah nailing it on the head. But yeah.
Because let's be honest, Ned Stark never had to claim Jon as his own. Ever. Ned never had to claim Jon. He could have let this woman, because we don't even know who his mother is. We don't know who Jon's mother is.
To this day, we don't know.
To this moment, we just don't know. So, Ned could have just left this woman with a baby and just whatever. Just effed off back to the north.
Yeah. But
because he is so honor-bound, he stood up for his mistake and said, you know what, I'm going to step up as a man. He's the ruler of the north. It's not like he can't afford it.
Mm-hmm.
And say, you know what, I am going... This is my child. I don't care.
That's how upfront Ned is. I made a mistake. I'm going to live with it for the rest of my life.
But the other thing is, and I think a lot of people don't pick up on it because this isn't a big... We are so used to single parenthood that we don't really think about it. It's not a big deal to us. Mm-hmm. Well, it is, but not in the same way. What a lot of people, I think, don't realize is that when you were talking about Ned being up front, he is purposefully putting his shame as a public spectacle.
He put it into the front center.
Because, like I said, Ned never had to claim Jon as his own. He never had to say, that's my son. But you know what that does? That shows that he is man enough to say, listen, I made a mistake, but you know what? That child is mine. And that child will have as much entitlement and as much honor and duty as any of my other children. Because he shares my blood. And that is my blood. And when he brought Jon back, you know what he could have done? He could have left Jon at the front step of some house and said, raise him as your own. Don't tell anyone, but raise him as your own. But you know what? His kids interact with Jon like a brother and treat Jon like a brother in as much respect as they can. Because Jon can't sit at the table with them. Because he's not technically a member of the family.
I didn't remember that. You're right. He can't sit at the table with them.
When the king comes to visit, Jon can't sit at the table. But if it were a normal day, he would be sitting at the table with the family because Ned would make sure he was there. If they were going on a trip as a family, Ned would make sure that Jon is there because Jon is a part of the family. Ned says, "Listen, I know that I have made a mistake, but that does not mean that mistake should fall on the head of my child, and I will take care of my child." And I don't think a lot of people realize that. And I think it physically pains Ned when he sees Jon not being able to sit at the same table.
It's a considerable weight to have on your shoulders. It's one more aspect to Ned Stark that it runs so much deeper as to why he's such a likable character. Though a lot of people would label him as a stick in the mud.
He's a good man and a good father.
He really is, and that's what you can get behind as a character.
Absolutely.
And especially for Sean Bean to portray
as a human being.
Yes,
it's good to see because he takes his responsibility to Jon very seriously, and he loves Jon enough that people know, this is my child. I love my child.
Kind of gets you emotional when you think about it.
It does,
you know?
but at the same time, what's really heartbreaking, I know for Jon, and even for me as a viewer, is the fact that Ned cannot associate too much with Jon.
Which is the roughest thing.
He can't.
Oh,
he
man.
can't. His best friend, the king, is coming to visit, but he cannot introduce Jon. Jon can't sit at the table.
It's very disgraceful.
It is. Jon can't go with the hunting party. Jon really can't even come to the dances or to discussions. This is his flesh and blood, but he can't associate with him.
Which is a really... I'm 100% behind you on this. Just kind of letting you go on all of this.
Because I know you agree with me.
Check. I absolutely agree with you. That's just why I let you go. But what the thing is that this is the prime factor. This family, their issues, is what you're going to see throughout the entire show. The entire family trees. Everyone's got some beef with somebody, where that is how this family works. This is what you're going to be seeing. It is the most prominent aspect and element when it comes to family. So
I would agree.
We're digging down deep into this. Trust me when I say we're going to be digging down deep on everybody, even the Lannisters, because Cersei has this, that, and the other going on with her. Robert Baratheon's got this, that, and whatever going on with him.
There's so much.
It's so much.
Sorry guys, I'm yawning, but there's so much to talk about. I think we've touched on Jon enough.
We touched on Catelyn, Ned, Jon, a little bit of Robb, a little bit of Arya.
I kind of want to dig into Sansa.
Let's dig into Sansa.
Okay.
Sink your claws in. Because she has, small spoiler, she's a very prominent character in throughout the books. And she's probably one of the most annoying ones. Just to me.
No, I agree. I completely agree. But
she's growing.
She is. I had a better term for it. She is the most openly naive.
And a lot of characters use that against her.
Well, why wouldn't you?
Why wouldn't you? If you're trying to politically scheme your way to the top and Sansa stays in the way, why wouldn't you?
Absolutely. She doesn't know any better and no one's taught her any better, so.
Precisely.
She doesn't know how to play the game.
When you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die.
Yeah, you win or you die. Pretty much. Valar Morghulis. All men must die.
Damn it.
So, sorry, did I take that one from you? I apologize.
No, you coughed during my line, but that's okay. You helped me through that. But no,
I'm sorry, do you want to say it again?
No, I'm fine. It's good.
Say it.
When you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die.
There you go.
Nailed it. So, yes, when it comes to Sansa, she's the most openly naive because she only has a very simple set of requirements for herself. The only thing that she was raised on. Maybe not the only thing she was raised on, but it's what she wanted.
It's her priorities.
Very much so. She wants, especially she has a very particular liking to Joffrey Baratheon. And I will hold my reserve on...
He's a royal a-hole!
He really is. He is the most douchiest...
Hated, horrible, asinine, ridiculous...
Keep nailing it, Sarah.
Bitch face.
God, I hate this kid so much. I can't believe I would hate a character more.
Seriously, I'm not certain as to why they didn't create an Emmy award for most hated character of all time, because Joffrey would win every single time.
Every single year that show was up for Emmys, he would most hated character goes to
Jack Gleason!
Yeah! Oh, no one's clapping. Wait, I'm gonna clap because he nailed it, man. Holy crap.
That's some serious acting ability to get everyone in the world to hate you.
Right. And it's not like we hate him. It's more like
I want him to die.
I want
so
you to
bad.
die.
Like, I wish I could reach in the television and just stab you. Like, I hate you. And most people love the villain because, like, it's so good to be bad.
It is, but he takes it to a whole new level.
He is the definition of just evil.
And you know what's funny? He's barely in this first episode, and we're still on the first episode. But even when you see him, he's got this smirk about him like, I'm going to have a feeling I'm not going to like you.
Yeah, he looks like a pompous asshole. And guess what? Doesn't disappoint. He's a pompous asshole.
He really is. So...
Moving on.
Let's get onto the Lanners really quick so that way we can move on to the next episodes. That way I'll make it an easier transition to talk about each of them. Because basically this is what the first episode is. Introducing the families. They're really setting up this world for you. Especially how it really begins, like I mentioned a lot earlier, if you guys remember. Magic was a brief hint where there's White Walkers. We'll get into that later. The White Walkers...
And dragons, and giants, and trolls,
You mentioned it, it's there. However, when we first start and it kicks us all off, we're introduced to what's behind the wall.
Which is something that we don't know yet, but it's scary as hell.
It really is, and it's such a brooding and deep element in this world that is always constantly explored in small doses.
So that when they actually reveal what's going on, it's like, holy crap!
The Westeros people are fucked!
Yeah, the people of Westerosi they are not going to have a good time.
Right, and that's how we start off with this. It starts off with some brutal killings by some White Walkers. We're introduced to the Stark family. They have to behead one of the deserters of the wall because if you desert your position, you get killed. Same as that. You know, it's like a prisoner trying to escape from jail. You're gone.
Yep.
And that sort of thing. So, fast forward. Blah, 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 blah. Lannisters. Go.
Cersei Lannister.
Oh, God.
is married to Robert Baratheon, king of Westeros.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
She is played by the ultra magnificent Lena Headey,
who again nails it
every time. She is uber mega manipulative bitch.
Yes.
No, alpha ultra manipulative bitch.
Right, and it's the first person you grab out of it. Like, I know I don't like you because you've got even more of a smirk than Joffrey Baratheon.
and she's not afraid to be like, she's like the Regina George of Game of Thrones. Because she's like, oh, I love your dress. That is the most hideous thing I've ever seen. And she's not afraid to be like, oh, that's so cute.
Oh, it's like, I like your room. Yes, it used to be my parents', but I made them trade me.
Exactly. And, so it was like, oh, I just don't like you.
At all.
And it's like, don't stomp your last season Prada shoes at me, honey. And it was like, oh, she's so fierce and sassy.
I know that reference. I understood that reference.
You understood that one?
I did.
And I understood that one.
Yes! Okay, so...
Moving on from fandoms.
Yes,
Cersei is very... Well, she's very controlling. She's very manipulative. But her one thing is that she cannot control her children.
Mm-mm.
She can't.
She lets them go, really. I feel like she
could, but she doesn't.
Oh, my son's a dick.
She loves her children, and because she's doted on them so much and given them everything they want.
Actually, there's a reason why she gives them everything they want.
Because she didn't get what she thought that she deserved when she was a kid. But
even more deeper than that, absolutely.
Well, we can get into that later because we're gonna have to.
Yes.
But I feel like the thing is, with Joffrey, she knew that eventually he was going to be king, and he was going to have so many pressures on his shoulders. So she just kind of let him do whatever he wanted to do, and
never added a single ounce of control on his attitude or the way he thought about things.
She even says, and I think this is almost a direct quote. I'm close. If you want to, fuck virgins, you can fuck virgins. If you want to fuck painted whores, you can fuck painted whores, because you'll be the king. And he was like, whoa, woman!
Hold the phone, pump your brakes, kid!
Like, whoa, slow down there, Sparky. You cannot tell your child that they can do whatever they want, because then they will feel the sense of entitlement to do whatever they want.
Get them when they're young.
And so it's like, you gotta grab this kid by the collar and shake him and be like, no, don't be an asshole.
You can't do this. You can't do that.
Right? Like, you're not gonna do that. You're not gonna do that. You're not gonna do that.
Thank you, ma'am. May I have another?
Exactly. I understood that reference. So, yeah, she's spoiled him to the point where he's just an a-hole. But then, like, her younger kids, it's just kind of like,
no, you exist. Okay.
But her daughter's like, oh, yeah, okay, she's good. Yeah, okay, yeah, she's not doing anything cool. All right, yeah.
We good here?
Okay.
Yeah. Goodbye.
And then it's like, Marcella, your hair's too long. Let's chop a little bit off. Okay. So, I mean, like, she cares, but she doesn't really care about her other two kids. I don't know.
It's really a lot of flip-flopping. She does, but she doesn't. She's got a lot of hate. She's very vile.
For Tyrion, poor Tyrion.
Let's talk about Tyrion.
Tyrion, played by the magnificently awesome Peter Dinklage, who makes my life in so many ways. And he is the tallest man standing,
yet the shortest man physically possible.
Yeah, because he physically is a little person. But his mannerisms and how he portrays himself, he's the tallest man in the room.
He really is.
And he is the smartest man in the room.
He is absolutely the smartest, and you can appreciate his smartness, his intuitiveness, his just everything about him.
His intelligence, his intuition, his wit, even
his authority.
His authority, his understanding of how the game is played. I mean, don't hate the player, hate the game.
Yeah.
And
what
you cannot
makes you do.
You cannot salt this man's game. I mean, he is hella fly.
And even when he's pressured back into a corner, it's almost like he comes up with it like it was always all part of the plan. It's all part of the plan.
Exactly. Want to watch me make this pencil disappear?
Ta-da! And it's gone.
Yeah. So I mean, I feel like Tyrion is always 12 steps ahead of everyone else, and he always knows the outcome. Even if he doesn't, he does.
Yeah, right,
like
right. I don't always die, but when I do, I don't.
Exactly. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the sound of Doug nailing it absolutely 100% on the head. and taking it out for drinks.
Ugh.
I just,
Tyrion is probably the most well-liked, the most favorable character.
He's my favorite.
He is my second favorite because Ned Stark's mine. But, yes, you can get behind. We're dancing over here. We're dancing.
Yeah, we're having, like, super awesome dance music.
Where's our martinis at?
Right?
You can give me a beer, though.
So,
you see how excited we get when it comes to these characters?
Seriously, Tyrion is my favorite character of all time because I appreciate anyone who uses brain over brawn to solve a problem.
Absolutely. So, with Tyrion, that is exactly what he uses throughout every single episode. And I gotta tell you, and it even happens in the second episode, which we can definitely segue into. All things considered, this is how this show works. With every character, it's important to go through every single trope, every single characteristic, every single mannerism, because this is what these characters use against each other, for each other, and with each other.
Uh-huh. Westeros is basically surrounded by water.
Yes.
And across, I guess you would say, like, almost the channel is a whole nother area, like a whole nother crap ton of countries.
It's like where the UK and Africa and Asia is. It's
so if you were to compare it to our globe, yes. Well, because especially if you say like Daenerys Targaryen, her whole family...
That's a whole new can of worms.
Yeah, a whole new can of worms because her entire family was the original rulers of Westerosi before Robert Baratheon came in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, go.
Okay, well, when it comes to the Targaryens, they were the original rulers of King's Landing before Robert's Rebellion, when Ned Stark was involved. You got that. However, what's a very interesting factor with the Targaryen family, there was a point in time where they had dragons.
Yes.
And with those dragons, over time, they became extinct.
And there's also the rumor that the Targaryens actually have dragon's blood in their veins.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when we're first introduced to her, we have the two siblings of the once... I can't actually remember.
The once great family of the Targaryens. You have...
It's basically all who's left.
Daenerys and her older brother Viserys.
Exactly. And Viserys is what they call the Beggar King, where he kind of begs his way through things, trying to get to what is rightfully his. And he's almost like Joffrey Baratheon on a more tame scale. He's a little shit.
He really is. He's very pompous, and he thinks he's better than everyone else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he knows what he wants, and he's trying to manipulate, but not in a very successful way.
And, here's Daenerys...
very sweet, innocent at the begin with. She's actually kind of being a pawn for Viserys' game.
Yes.
Here's the Dothraki and the grasslands and, whatnot. Sorry if I'm getting a lot of this wrong.
No, you're good.
But, it's like, here's my plan. I'm just going to use my sister. Let's wed her off to someone she doesn't even know. Done. I'm the king.
Exactly.
And it's like, in his head, he's already king.
Exactly, and he's like, I'm going to take your entire army across the seas, and I'm going to plant myself on the throne, and booyah, I win. Doesn't really work that way.
It's so much.
It really is so much.
So that's a great little tidbit with Daenerys, excuse me. We'll just call her Dany.
Dany, it's easier.
It is easier, and that's what she's going through, especially in the first season. And if we don't mention her, it's not that we've forgotten her. It's just that this is what she's going through. She's trying to make her way up in the Dothraki way of life because that's all she's going to know right now.
Plus, her story really becomes developed towards the latter end of the season.
Right.
So it's not that she's not important. It's just her character doesn't really develop so much of an identity until later in the season.
Right.
Because right now she's being married to Khal Drogo.
Khal Drogo, yes.
Who is the leader of the Dothraki people.
Played by Jason Momoa, by the way, for you who want to, go googly-eyed over Mr. Big Brawn and Husky.
Yeah, he's okay. I like mine tall, skinny, and nerdy.
There you go. So, moving on from that, we were like in this episode mostly it's still primary in the north, but they're starting to travel more down south.
Yeah, Ned has decided that he's going to be the hand of the king, so he has to move the majority of his family and his possessions to the capital of Westeros, which is King's Landing.
And his daughters are the ones that are following Arya and Sansa, and mostly for the reason of Sansa really...
She wants to marry Joffrey. She's in love with Joffrey, and she wants to have blonde-headed little babies. And Arya...
7 hells.
Exactly. And Arya just wants to see blacksmiths and sword fightings and...
Yeah.
Craziness.
Absolutely. And this is also where a lot of the family splits up, where we'll see things at Winterfell, we're going to see things at King's Landing, which is down south.
Winterfell is the name of the Stark's home, by the way.
Yes, sorry,
FYI.
excuse me. And King's Landing is the capital of the south and also of the entire country. Yeah, 7 kingdoms. As this episode is, it's basically just... seeing everyone starting to split, and one of the characters, Jon, goes to the wall.
Yeah, he goes way north. So basically, one of the big things that we have to remember about the wall, or learn if you've never watched Game of Thrones, the wall is you could kind of almost equate it to a Knights Templar type thing, because it's very very violent. They protect everyone south of the wall from wildling invaders, and they have to remain celibate.
They cannot take a woman.
Yeah,
That's basically what it means.
Yeah.
They are stripped of everything that they're entitled to just to protect this wall from what lies beyond it.
And since Jon doesn't really have a name that he can call his own, he decides that he wants to go up and be with his Uncle Benjamin.
Yep. On their journey there in the second episode, this is where we really see the small taste of Joffrey Baratheon being a little shit. And
he beats the shit out of a little boy just because the boy kind of bested him at swordplay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And one of the big things in this episode is the house emblem of the Starks is a direwolf, which is like a regular wolf but much, much bigger, much more deadly.
Yes.
And 6 of them are found. 5 of...
Ironically, yeah.
Yeah, to represent each one of the children. 6 of them being of remotely the same kind of color, black and gray. But then there's a snow white colored wolf that ends up being Jon Snow's. It was just very ironic and funny.
It really is. I'm glad you actually put that in there, because that is actually an element that needs to be said, especially what happens.
Because this wolf is very isolated, because it's completely different from all the others.
Mm-hmm.
One of these things is not like the other.
One of these things does not belong.
Exactly. So it was very much ironic that happened. And when Joffrey beats the shit out of this little boy, Arya's direwolf comes out and bites Joffrey for trying to hurt this little boy. Mm-hmm. To which Joffrey screams and panders to his mother like a little bitch. And then the bitch that Cersei is, she said that wolf needs to be beheaded. And then Robert Baratheon makes Ned kill this wolf.
Unfortunately. Which is actually a very powerful moment when you look back at it. When you're actually seeing it, you're like...
Because that's the end of Arya's childhood.
It really is. And there's a lot of metaphors to that.
And the biggest problem is that it's actually not Arya's wolf that gets beheaded, but it's Sansa's. Mm-hmm. Because Arya makes her direwolf run away so that the wolf won't get killed. Yep. But then Ned has to take the life of one of the wolves, so he kills Sansa's, and
it's very tragic, even
she
for an
freaks out about it. She gets really upset, and Sansa blames her and screams at it, and things don't really get important until you get later on when, Khal Drogo and Daenerys are actually they're actually starting to bond together as a married couple.
She's starting to show some dominance, because one of the handmaidens, should I call her, was like, listen, when he's out there, when Khal Drogo is out there, he's the king of the fields, his men.
But when it's just you two, it's just you two. Like, you can totally dominate over him, and he's actually gonna love it. So just do it.
Yes.
Which she does, and he ends up loving that, and he loves her for it. And she actually becomes a member of this group, and she's very much accepted.
Mm-hmm.
And they care for her very much, which upsets her brother because her brother is an asshole.
Very much so. I mean, it's...
So much so that her husband ends up killing her brother.
And that's very, like, just kind of fast-forwarding through all that. That happens probably about midway in the season where it's like, yeah, I'm kind of glad that's over. He was annoying. And
Pretty
it's
much.
like, thank you for getting rid of that annoyance, knowing that some justice is served. That if you are too much of a pompous windbag and you're not in high authority, you better watch your step. Because if you're not, you go bye-bye.
Pretty much. And then it gets even better because while we're back at King's Landing, Arya ends up taking sword fighting lessons.
Yep, which is in the 3rd episode as well.
Yes, she ends up taking sword fighting lessons. Sansa starts to realize that maybe there's a little bit more sinister stuff at hand than she first believed.
Yep.
But people are still sugarcoating everything, so she's not ready to accept that yet. Jon Snow realizes that maybe being at the wall isn't awesome, and maybe he doesn't want to do it, and his Uncle Benjamin has disappeared, so he kind of wants to go after him, but he's not allowed to. He doesn't really fit in at first because he was raised around royalty, and royalty learns how to sword fight and do all this other kind of stuff.
He knows how, and he upshows everybody.
He upshows everybody, but then, the leader of, the Night's Watch, which is what they call themselves, kind of tells him, look, these are the people that you're going to be fighting with. You better start being humble or they're going to kill you in your sleep.
Respect them because they're your brothers.
Exactly.
Or they will be.
So that's when Jon kind of takes a step back and starts teaching everyone how to fight properly. Ned Stark seems to realize very quickly that he doesn't play manipulative games. He's very straightforward and honest, which is not something that works out very well for him.
He's a fish out of water.
He's very much a fish out of water because Cersei Baratheon, she's married to the king, has her own way of doing things, and she's very manipulative, and she has people in her pocket. Then you have Littlefinger, who is actually in love with Ned Stark's wife and would do anything to get Ned out of the way. And then you have Varys, who they call the Spider. Who they call the Spider because he is just a web of information. He has spies everywhere. And everybody is fighting against each other. Littlefinger wants to kill Ned, which, whoop, sorry, spoilers. He ends up being beheaded because he finds out the truth. Mm-hmm. And he finds the truth as to why the original Hand of the King was murdered.
And also found out that
Robert Baratheon has a bunch of illegitimate kids.
And one thing we did overlook but was not forgotten is how Cersei is having sex with her brother.
Her
Jaime.
Twin brother
Jaime Lannister. And they had children together, only she carefully and...
She had all of her children with
exactly.
Jaime.
And this is what really causes the conflict in Game of Thrones, is who's really the true...
King.
Heir to the throne after, say, spoilers, Robert Baratheon dies. Yeah. And so that's basically a really great crash course throughout all these episodes. It would be really hard to actually talk about each episode in its entirety. However, another big conflict is how when we are introduced to him, he can walk. He was pushed out of the window the moment he found out that Jaime and Cersei were sleeping together.
Absolutely.
And from there was an assassination attempt that was done on him that brings Catelyn to investigate.
And she thinks that Tyrion Lannister is the one who tried to kill her son.
Which starts again this whole big conflict of...
And everyone is just against Tyrion because he's smart and everyone's jealous of him.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, it's the truth. Everyone is jealous of how smart Tyrion Lannister is. Right?
Rue.
Don't be hating on a smart dude. Get over it, son. Why don't you pick up a book and some shit?
But again, it shows how clever Tyrion is to get out of all these. He knows how people think every single time. And I wish I could get into it. I really do. However,
there's just too much to dive into it completely.
But that's where I think we could really talk about the most crucial episode is the last 2 episodes. And that's where Ned Stark has found himself in the thick of it all. He was betrayed, backstabbed
by Littlefinger.
By Littlefinger, and also literally stabbed by one of the, King's guards that Jaime was trying to, get his brother back. So all that kind of twists into a really tragic fable here, to where
the good guy finishes last.
The good guys finish last.
And he's a head shorter.
Oh, you had to go there.
I totally went there too soon.
Too soon.
It's been 4 seasons, damn it.
And yet we're still on season 1. So
we'll never get through it.
Actually, we're getting through it. We really are.
Yeah, because we just sped up that middle bit.
And it's actually quite fun when we talk about these things, because it's like, wait, you said that, but whatever. Spoilers galore, by the way.
And then Daenerys, she loses her baby.
She loses her baby.
She gets
tricked.
She gets tricked. She was given some dragon's eggs, fossilized dragon's eggs, as a wedding present, and her husband ends up dying. She loses her baby, and she decides that she's going to burn along with her husband because she just can't do it anymore. Mm-hmm. So her dragon's eggs and her husband end up going up in this pyre of smoke, and then she just emerges with living
3
dragons,
baby dragons, and they are probably the most realistic looking dragons you'll ever see.
Yo, for real though, that shit's ridiculous.
It's almost like the eye dilating of the Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Oh my god, that was so cool. Oh my god, Jurassic Park, go back to animatronic.
And I'd have to say, it's one of the reasons why I love this season so much. It's before the chaos truly happens, but there is definite personal chaos happening. It's just not resulted into a whole huge whirlwind that turns into a tornado that somehow physically and, turns into a hurricane, and then the hurricane turns into a typhoon. How does that happen? I don't know. But that's what happens in Game of Thrones.
It just goes from bad to worse to holy shit, and my soul's dying inside.
We're masochists because we love this show.
Dude, it is painful, but I keep going back. I really am. I really am.
So by this point, Ned Stark is dead. Dragons are alive and existing.
His daughter Arya escapes from the capital. Sansa's stuck, and she's engaged to an asshole. Because at this point, she and Joffrey are engaged.
Yep. And Joffrey's having way too much fun with this betrothal. Torturing her.
Which, I'm sorry, I would have slapped the shit out of him and be like, ooh, what? You gonna kill me? Fine.
But yet, that's the thing. Sansa won't do that. She won't.
But she's weak.
She's really weak.
It's been 4 seasons. She's still weak. Like, she just doesn't learn.
It's like, oh, she lies once. I've turned to the dark side.
Exactly, and it's like, what?
Right. Ugh. And, it's very painful.
I hate her as a character. Out of all the people that have died, and it's like, you're still alive. You are
Why'd you spare her? Gods of the 7 gods. You're sparing her.
Right.
Why?
The gods of my father is like, for God's sake, why? 7 hells.
Right. So the most honorable man gets killed. Yep. The most naive stays alive and is manipulated. So I think that's her own personal hell. You've got Daenerys, who's working her way up in the world because she was technically thrusted upon this. She was naive at first, but she had a lot of people to help her rise above that. Yep. And really learn a lot of valuable lessons.
Yes.
We've got Jon Snow, who's learning the secrets of the world as nobody believes. We have...
Oh, by the way, let me just interject this one thing.
Sure. Am I boring you, sweetheart?
No, I'm so working too hard. I'm so exhausted. I know, right? Mm-hmm. After everything that happens with Daenerys, that was the last moment that you ever saw weakness.
It really is.
Continue.
That is very true, and I'm glad you said that, because it's from there she just becomes stronger as a person, stronger as a character as you watch her.
Ruler.
Yes, and it actually kind of makes where I don't know where you reside. I find her very enjoyable to watch because it's like I like seeing that progression, that growth.
Yep.
But she's a very huge favorite as much as Tyrion is. It's like, oh, we get to watch Daenerys and, dragons, and oh my God, she's so awesome and so powerful now, and it's great stuff. It's great stuff. However,
I'm kind of hoping that she just kills Cersei. That she comes over and just
done.
Yup.
However, this is the biggest thing. She stays on that side. She does not come into Westeros. She still has not come into Westeros.
Nope.
And
it'll be a while before she does.
Wah, wah, wah. So that's first season for you. And I think we really want to breeze through this, but it's great to introduce the characters, talk about them because they're the most important.
Yes. I agree.
So our next podcast is going to be on season 2, and depending on how fast that goes, I wouldn't mind speeding through season 2, 3, and up to 4 because there's just so much.
There is so much. There's no way that we can go episode by episode. We have to go as an entire season.
And we learn that now.
Too much stuff.
But at least people who are watching this, thank you so much for listening to us.
Yes, thank you.
At least the first season is such a great beginning.
Yes.
To all of this. They play the characters well. They don't cut corners. They're like, oh, maybe we shouldn't be so cruel. No, fuck it, do it. It's like, that's why people are talking about this. They don't pull punches. Mm-hmm. I said this in my own little overview when I made a video on Game of Thrones. It's like, you make the right choice, you die. You make the wrong one, you live.
Absolutely.
That is exactly what is happening.
And that's the motto of the entire show. Valar Morghulis. All men must die.
Absolutely.
All men must die.
So, this wraps up season 1.
Woohoo! Go watch it.
Go watch it. I think you guys will be heavily amused and enthralled.
Yes.
And completely intensified, as I like to put it. And it only gets worse, but it gets better as a viewer because you are going to be around so many people who have seen that show. Yeah. Just make it so worthwhile.
Absolutely.
So it's really great stuff because it's there's nothing else out there like it.
There really isn't.
There are other places that try and succeed on the level they are, but Game of Thrones is just top dollar.
It really is.
It's just on a high rise.
I completely agree.
Of all the things.
Yeah.
So, thank you guys so much for watching once again.
Thank you. Of course, we enjoy you guys listening, and
Absolutely.
we love your feedback. So tell us if you have some questions or if there's something you want us to go over.
Anything that we forgot, anything that's worth mentioning.
Absolutely. Let us know because we can include that in our next podcast.
By all means, comments away and let us know. But like I always say in my videos, tell me your praises, tell me your woes.
Absolutely. And we'll catch you guys on the flip side.
All right. See you guys.
Bye.